The one where Rachel is late is the 22nd episode of the 8th season of Friends. This is directed by Gary Halvorson, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. There are two main parts of the narrative, so I'll talk about each of them in turn. And one focuses on Joey and Chandler, one on Rachel and mostly Ross. And Joey is in a World War II film, and he's going to have this premiere. Everybody's going to go, everybody except Rachel, because today is her due date. And then it's also 8 days later at one point, so the episode takes place across about a week. And then Estelle calls Joey, and it turns out he's only able to invite one guest. And I think it was pretty obvious that he had to take Chandler. And he does. And he takes Chandler to the premiere. And it's so lovely to see them at the event, to see Joey enjoying his success. We know he's done a lot of plays and a lot of films that haven't necessarily been the greatest, but this seems like a really great thing for him, and it's so lovely to see. And they're enjoying watching the screening, and then Joey turns to Chandler, and Chandler's asleep. And needless to say, Joey is hurt by this. Now, I think Joey should realise that being asleep doesn't necessarily mean the film was boring. It could just mean that Chandler was very, very tired. However, Joey obviously is hurt by this, and he tricks Chandler by asking him what he thought of the scene with the kangaroo, which in itself is funny because Chandler plays along, not wanting Joey to know he was asleep. That in itself is funny, but what Joey said in response was brilliant. There was no kangaroo. They didn't take any of my suggestions. I'd love to know what Joey's other suggestions were, other than let's have a kangaroo in a World War I film. So I rather enjoyed that quite a lot. And ultimately what Joey does is decide to pay Chandler back for all of the headshots and rent and acting classes and other things Chandler has paid for over the years. And it's quite a long scene as they're going through all of the money that Chandler has given Joey or helped him out with. And Joey realises falling asleep isn't that big of a deal after all, clearly implying that he owes him a lot of money. And I thought it was a nice way to wrap things up. Joey and Chandler should never fall out. It happens a lot. Sometimes it happens quite drastically. Sometimes it's a little thing like this where they resolve it pretty quickly, and it's always much more satisfying for me as a viewer when things are resolved very, very quickly. So I rather was happy with the direction that took. And as I said, it's just so great to see Joey finally being successful, feeling successful. It's just wonderful to see. And then we come to Rachel, and as we established, it was Rachel's due date, and then after her due date, and Ross says to her, he says to her, "I wish I were a seahorse." And it takes a couple of seconds for him to explain that it's because the male carries the baby. But just the sentence on its own I thought was brilliant. Rachel is understandably uncomfortable. She's irritable. Everybody else is getting irritated by it. And they go to the doctor's appointment. And Ross was unreasonable for the most part in this episode. I think Ross made all of the right decisions. I think his thoughts and feelings were valid. But when he asked if Rachel wanted to change to go to the doctor's appointment, he was bang out of order. To be fair, Rachel's not wearing anything that inappropriate anyway. Just her stomach was showing quite a bit. But she's over 9 months pregnant. Give her a break. So Ross was very unreasonable in that moment. And even if she wasn't pregnant and she was just wearing a top that, showed her arms and her shoulders, that's not revealing. Even when this was released, it's a bit ridiculous. So Ross was not great in that moment. They go to the doctor's appointment. Rachel's continuing to be irritable. And the doctor gives her some suggestions on how to maybe encourage going into labour. A lot of home remedies, spicy foods, going for a walk, and sex. And Rachel just turns and looks at Ross. And Ross absolutely is not having this. Meanwhile, Phoebe and Monica are placing bets on when Rachel's going to have the baby. And I love the fact that when Rachel learned about this, she didn't get annoyed. She just got in on the action. As she said, she might as well make some money out of being miserable. And I thought that was a nice way to look at it. I thought it was a good decision there. And it's also a nice way to involve Monica and Phoebe in the narrative as well. And then, later on, near the end of the episode, Rachel and Ross are back at the apartment, eating spicy foods. Nothing is working. Rachel's trying to seduce Ross. It's not working either. And then she's insulting Ross. She's nitpicking. She's whinging. She's being very, very annoying. So to shut her up and to get the baby out of her, Ross kisses her. It was beautifully executed. and her waters break. And as Ross puts it, he's good. And off they go to have the baby, and that's how we end the episode. So I thought it was a really great episode. And I think it did a really great job of highlighting, first of all, how uncomfortable it must be to be in Rachel's position, but also how unfortunate it must be to be Rachel's friends at the time, because she was very, very annoying. And of course, she's uncomfortable, she's irritable, she's allowed to be, but it's not a nice experience for other people either. Then we have Joey's success, and it's such a delight to see. It sucks that Chandler fell asleep, but as I said, maybe it wasn't because he was bored. Maybe he was just very, very tired. Maybe he was so relaxed and enjoying the experience that he just got a little too relaxed. Who knows? Either way, I think it's a really, really great episode, the one where Rachel is late. It's an absolute joy. Everybody's involvement was brilliant. Ross was brilliant for the most part, apart from that one moment where he very unacceptably suggested Rachel go and change, but everything else about it was absolutely brilliant. The one where Rachel is late is, all things considered, a pretty great episode of Friends.